Most people who are planning a kitchen remodel spend weeks picking the floor. The color, the material, the finish. They go to the showroom, they bring home samples, they hold them up against the cabinets. But here's the thing, the floor you pick is maybe 10% of the decision. The other 90% happens underneath it, before it, and in the exact sequence it gets installed. And most homeowners never hear about any of that until something goes wrong. I've seen beautiful floors buckle 6 months after a remodel. I've seen tile crack along grout lines that looked perfect on install day. I've seen floating floors trap moisture against a Miami slab and lift at the seams. And in almost every single case, the floor itself wasn't the problem. What was under it was. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how kitchen flooring installation works inside a full remodel, the subfloor, the moisture problem specific to South Florida, the sequencing decision that most contractors get wrong, and what removal of an old floor actually involves in a home built before 1980. This is what we go through on every project at Gaven Constructions. And by the end of this, you will know more about kitchen flooring than most people who sell it. I'm a licensed Florida general contractor, licensed GCG1524886, verifiable at myfloridalicense.com. We've completed over 500 projects since 2015 across Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County. Full kitchen remodels, bathroom remodels, additions. This is all we do. And kitchen flooring is one of those scopes that looks simple from the outside and is genuinely complicated when you get into it. So let's get into it. The first thing you need to understand is that the floor you see is not the floor that matters most. What matters most is what's underneath it, the subfloor. And the subfloor is where almost every floor failure starts. The subfloor is the structural layer beneath the finished floor. It's what everything sits on. And the two things that matter most about it are flatness and rigidity. Flatness has a specific tolerance. The National Wood Flooring Association, the NWFA, which is the governing body for wood floor installation standards, sets it at 1/8 of an inch within a 6-foot radius, or 3/16 of an inch within a 10-foot radius. That sounds like a small number, and it is. But a slab or subfloor outside that tolerance will telegraph every dip and hump through the finished floor within a year. You'll feel it underfoot. You'll see it in the grout lines. You'll hear it in the squeaks. If the subfloor is outside that tolerance, and in older Miami homes it often is, it has to be ground down or built up with self-leveling compound before anything goes on top. That's not optional. That's the prep work that determines whether the floor lasts 5 years or 20. For homes, on a concrete slab, which is most of Miami-Dade and Broward, the slab itself has prerequisites beyond flatness. The NWFA specifies the concrete should be a minimum of 3,000 psi, and a moisture test has to confirm the slab is dry enough before installation is committed. These are the checks we run during the prep phase before the floor goes down, because once the cabinets and countertops are sitting on a finished floor, fixing the layer underneath means tearing all of it back out. Now here's the part that's specific to South Florida, and that most flooring guides written for the rest of the country completely miss. A concrete slab in Miami is never fully dry the way a homeowner imagines. Ground moisture moves up through the slab continuously. It doesn't stop. It doesn't dry out in the summer. It's a permanent condition of building on a slab in this climate. And a wood or laminate floor laid straight onto bare concrete will eventually cup, swell, or lift. Not might, will. This is the single most common reason kitchen floors fail in Miami, and it is entirely preventable. The fix is a vapor retarder, a membrane installed between the slab and the floor. The NWFA recommends a membrane with a perm rating of 0.13 or less. A 6mm polyethylene film is the common spec. That layer stops slab moisture from reaching the flooring above it. It's invisible once the floor is down, which is exactly why a cheap install skips it and a proper one doesn't. This is also where material choice and moisture intersect. Luxury vinyl plank handles moisture better than wood or laminate, which is a big part of why it's become the default for Miami kitchens. But even vinyl plank needs the subfloor flat and the perimeter expansion gap respected, or it buckles when the slab warms. Moisture protection isn't a product you buy off a shelf. It's a step in the install that either happens or doesn't. And you won't know it didn't happen until 6 months later when the floor starts moving. Here's the question that separates a remodel-grade floor install from a flooring store one. Does the floor go in before the cabinets or after them? Most homeowners have never thought about this. Most flooring salespeople won't bring it up, but it has real consequences that last for the entire life of the kitchen. The answer depends on the floor type. For tile and glue-down floors, the floor goes in first, then the cabinets sit on top of it. The floor becomes a continuous, sealed surface, and the cabinet height is set on top of the finished floor. For floating floors like luxury vinyl plank or laminate, the better practice is usually to install the cabinets first and run the floor up to them, because a floating floor expands and contracts, and trapping it under a heavy cabinet run can cause it to buckle. But here's where it gets consequential. If the floor goes in after the cabinets, the finished floor height affects whether the dishwasher still slides into its opening. A floor that's thicker than what was there before can mean the dishwasher no longer fits without modification. That's a problem you discover on install day if nobody planned for it. There's also the future replacement question. Flooring run wall-to-wall under the cabinets means the next floor replacement requires pulling the cabinets. Flooring stopped at the cabinet toe kick can be replaced without them. That's a decision made once at the beginning of the remodel that affects every future owner of that kitchen. And then there are transitions, where the kitchen floor meets the floor in adjacent rooms. The height has to match, or a threshold has to bridge the difference. If nobody planned out for that, you get a trip hazard, or an ugly transition strip that doesn't fit anything. We set the sequence during design, so the cabinet installation and the floor install are planned together, not improvised on site. A kitchen floor takes more abuse than any other floor in the house. Dropped pans, standing water at the sink, the refrigerator's point load on a small footprint, chairs dragged across it every single day. The material has to survive that, and the install has to account for it. Luxury vinyl plank, porcelain tile, and engineered wood are the three that hold up in a Miami kitchen. Each installs differently, and each has specific requirements. Porcelain floor tile needs a flat, rigid base and proper setting to avoid lippage. That's when one tile edge sits higher than the adjacent tile, and cracking. It's also worth being clear, floor tile is a completely different job from wall tile or backsplash tile. The setting, the substrate requirements, the grout, all different. Vinyl plank needs the expansion gap at the perimeter and a flat subfloor. Skip the expansion gap and the floor has nowhere to go when it expands with heat, so it buckles up at the seams. Engineered wood needs the moisture barrier and acclimation time before it goes down. You bring engineered wood into a Miami home and lay it the same day, it's going to move. It needs time to adjust to the humidity of the space before it's committed to the floor. One install detail that matters more than people expect: appliance loads. A refrigerator concentrates a significant amount of weight on a very small footprint. On a floating floor, that point load has to be planned for so the floor doesn't dent or separate at the seams over time. These are the specifics that get decided during the remodel design, not after the floor is already down. Before any new floor goes in, the old one comes out. And in older Miami homes, anything built before about 1980, that step carries a risk that's worth naming directly. Sheet vinyl flooring and the black mastic adhesive underneath it, installed before 1980, can contain asbestos. This is not a scare tactic. It's a documented material reality of that era of construction. And it is not a DIY removal. The EPA is direct about it. Do not sand asbestos flooring or its backing. Do not use a power stripper on flooring that may contain asbestos. Disturbing it is what releases the fibers. The safe path is either to install the new floor over it where the structure allows, or to have it removed by a qualified abatement contractor, never scraped or sanded by the remodel crew. There's a second older home rule that applies during demo. The EPA's renovation, repair, and painting rule covers homes built before 1978 because of lead paint disturbed during renovation. We work to those requirements on older homes as part of the project. This is one more reason the flooring phase belongs inside a permitted full remodel, and not a weekend floor swap. The permits, the sequencing, the abatement planning, these are not bureaucratic overhead. They are the difference between a floor that's safe and documented and one that creates liability for every future owner. So here's what kitchen flooring installation actually is inside a full remodel. It's subfloor prep to tolerance. It's a moisture barrier between the slab and the floor. It's a sequencing decision made at design, not on install day. It's material selection matched to the climate and the load. And it's demo handled correctly when the home is old enough to carry risk. None of that is visible when the floor is done. That's the point. When it's done right, you see a beautiful floor that sits flat, stays flat, and doesn't move. When it's done wrong, you see the same thing for about 6 months. At Gaven Constructions, kitchen flooring is one phase of a full permitted kitchen remodel. It's sequenced with the cabinets, the countertops, the plumbing, and the electrical, so every decision is made in the right order, and nothing gets fixed after the fact. If you're planning a kitchen remodel in Miami-Dade, Broward, or Palm Beach County, we offer a free quote, no trip fee, and same-day appointment scheduling. The number is 786-378-8800. The link to request a quote is below. Licensed Florida general contractor, 500 plus projects since 2015, 5.0 stars on over 60 Google reviews. We'll see you on the next one.